Welcome to the Badass American Heroes podcast. Coming at you now. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Badass American Heroes podcast. I am Brandon. This is Badass American Heroes, a bi-weekly podcast where we dive deep into the lives of some of America's greatest stories of bravery, courage, sacrifice, as told by the men and women who live them, the amazing members of the United States military, both past and present. Welcome back. Thanks for coming back and joining me again here. I'm excited to have you. I'm excited about tonight's show. It's a barn burner, and I can't wait to get into it. Tonight is part 2 in our series with David Misiura, Air Force Reservist, 3 deployments to the Middle East, also a entrepreneur, CEO, founder of Lox Hair Wax Company. All around great guy. I'm so excited that he came on the podcast and took time out of his busy schedule to talk with me for a little bit and share his life with us. You know, it's a great honor for me to be able to sit down and talk with these veterans and kind of get inside their heads a little bit and find out what makes them tick, why they do the things that they do, and, you know, how they've transitioned out of the military and taken what they learned in their careers. And in this case, you know, what David is still doing, he's still in the Air Force Reserve going on 12 years, and how they take those skills and put them to work in the civilian sector, whether it's business, whether it's as an employee, as a doctor, EMT, firefighter, police officer, whatever it may be. Man, you know, they're the best of the society that we have today. I firmly believe that. I can't wait to get into it, but before we do, you know, we got a couple things we got to talk about. Guys, the podcast is growing. It's getting so big. It's getting huge. And that is all thanks to you guys. I truly can't describe how appreciative I am that you guys come back and listen to this podcast every time it drops. It means the world to me that these stories get to be shared and that you guys find them interesting enough to come in and listen to them. Really, 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 it's something that, you know, it means more to me than I could ever describe. That being said, you guys know where the podcast is. One place you don't know about, because it's brand new, is YouTube. The podcast is now on YouTube, video and audio. Right now it's kind of a little bit more audio, but video podcasts are coming. There's going to be big announcements about that in the near future. Also, to the 3 winners of the giveaway, congratulations. You guys won the Audible download codes for Gunnery Sergeant Bustler's book, No Tougher Duty, No Greater Honor, a memoir of a mortuary affairs Marine. The feedback I got from that 3-part series, guys, was amazing. You guys really enjoyed it, and that makes me happy. And I know that Christian was stoked that you guys enjoyed it. So congrats to those winners. If you didn't win, keep your eyes and ears open, because there's going to be some more giveaways. We're going to be giving away a signed copy of his book and a couple more audio download copies. So keep your eyes open on that. Also, you know, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, TuneIn. These are all places where you guys can listen to the podcast. So make sure you tell your buddies about it. Tell your friends. Make sure that they listen. You know, the last swap cast with Blake is up, where we talk about Alex Jones and kind of the danger that we believe freedom of speech is in right now. So check that out. Listen to that. That's with my boy Blake from the new Noise Pollution podcast. If you guys haven't heard what Blake's doing over there, it's amazing stuff. Get in, check that out. Noise Pollution Podcast. He's on Instagram and Facebook. You can just pop in there and search Noise Pollution Podcast. He pops right up. So check Blake out. Let him know Brandon sent you. Now, let's get in to the finale of our 2-part series with David Misiura, Air Force Reserve veteran and CEO and founder of Lox Hair Wax Company. Let's get into it. Boom.
Yeah, that's so funny that you say that, because honestly, it was a mixture of both. And so, like, at the same time, I was kind of, I I definitely was not burnt out. Don't get me wrong. Air Force deployments are 6 months right now. And when I was in, they were like anywhere from between 4 to 6 months. So like I definitely wasn't quote unquote burnt out. And I think, I got to give the Air Force credit for that too. I know, I had some Army guys get deployed and they were like in country for like 12 months and like training on top of that, build-up training for like up to 6 months before they even deploy. And so like I got to give the Air Force credit for that because like 6 months, when you hit that 6 months mark, you're at the point where like I want to I want to go home. I'm losing my mind right now. And so I can't imagine. I mean, I can imagine. I'll say I can imagine, but I haven't experienced hitting that 6 month mark and say, wow, I still got another half a deployment left. Like that's crazy. So, hats off to all other branches that have done that. That's crazy to me. That's just, I can't wrap my mind around that. But, and then even on that same note, just side topic real quick, but same topic, I guess you could say, but like on that same note, like going back to World War II where these guys left in like 1941 and they didn't even go home until the war was over. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy.
There's a reason we call them the greatest generation, man.
Dude, no kidding. I mean, obviously, they have that generation, World War I, World War II, that whole era has a special place in our hearts at Lox, and that shows through some of our artwork. But yeah, I mean that's the topic we can talk about later. But yeah, so I did experience both things when I came back from my second deployment, and that was a mixture of, I spent a year in Balad at Balad Air Base. Granted, it was separated by probably a half a year or so, or maybe more. But so like I had that experience or that feeling where I was like, kind of like, yeah, I've been there, and I kind of can care less if I go back. But at the same time, I did have the other experience where like I was like, you know what, like there will never be another deployment like Balad Air Base. Like the friendships I formed there and the experiences I had there, like I'll never forget that. And it just means a lot to me. I value that. I value all the relationships I had there, and I value all the experiences I learned, and they have great value. And like I was able to, at least I was mature enough to actually appreciate that. And so yeah, so to answer your question, I had a mixture of both feelings there.
Yeah.
I do remember this though. My second deployment, we had. It was a large base, as you know, it was extremely large. Even the aerial port, the flight line was large. So we actually had like 3 parking ramps that we worked from, which aircraft came in and out of all the time. And that's where we performed our duties. And so, one of those ramps we nicknamed South Beach, just for, communication purposes over the radio. We can cut, instead of like giving it the designated, 6-word name of the actual ramp, we would just call it, we would nickname everything. As you know, it's just easier to talk code on a radio. It's shorthand, short term, or whatever. Yeah. So anyway, we nicknamed this one flight, this one cargo ramp, South Beach, and that's where we parked all of their C-130s there. And I remember that, like, we used to go there like all the time. Like there were always missions going on there. And then I remember towards like the end, towards like the withdrawal and the shutting down, as you were saying, like, places being shut down, like eventually that happened to Balad Air Base, and it was like, it was kind of like it turned into what felt like a ghost town. It was just so eerie.
Yeah.
And it really was so eerie. And I remember just like driving down to South Beach, like when I had time in between missions, there was nothing there, and I'm like, this is so weird, so eerie,
weird,
and
man.
and you. Yeah, and you get that kind of like that feeling where like, I don't know, man, like you kind of like watch a movie. Like if you watch a movie where like a group of friends grow up together, and then at the end of the movie they're like grown up, they're adults, and they don't talk to each other anymore, and you get that kind of like feeling of like emptiness, and you're like, what just happened? They're like, what's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
and so that's the way I felt like leaving that place, and I'm like, man, this is so weird. Like I had so many experiences here. I met so many cool people and had so many awesome relationships here with these people in the military, and like and now I'm looking at this flight line and it's like empty, and it's like and then like the sagebrush blows across the flight line, like the old western. So,
You hear like a coyote howl or something.
yeah. Yeah, but so it's really really eerie and yeah, it's just crazy the different experiences that you go through.
So you come back home now, and we're kind of at the end of 2009 probably, and you come back to your corrections job. How long is
Right.
it before the Air Force comes knocking again for your third deployment?
Right. Yeah. So that's funny. So it was a little bit spaced out, a little bit longer. I mean, I give or take a couple of months, but I would say the next year, or the next year. Let's see, it's 2018, and like I said, my first and only 3 deployments were in my first 4 years of service. So whatever that falls under, whatever year that was, but it was probably a year later that I got back home. That we were up again for another deployment, but this time it was to Ali Al Salim, Kuwait, which I had never been to before. But I remember a bunch of my Army buddies saying that it was just boring. It's just a staging area in case we have to QRF into, invade Iraq again or whatever. And because it's like right there on the border. And, I really had no desire to go. I honestly had no desire to go, actually. Not that I was burnt out or sick of deployments. I just didn't want to go. It was more like I was in my comfort zone kind of thing. Like, I was into the routine of being back into a job and kind of just had my daily routine again.
Had you
and,
started
had no
anything
desire.
with Lox at this point, or were you still just strictly
No,
doing
no.
corrections?
Right. Strictly doing corrections and actually enjoying it. And I'll get into what I mean by that a little bit later, but I'll finish up the Kuwait tour. So like the year later, and we're in the bucket again. And again, just to recap, I didn't want to go. And so it turns out that a lot of the squadron didn't want to go either. So, do you remember how I told you how they do volunteer status first? And so they needed, I don't know how many people they needed, but they opened it up to volunteer first, and they didn't fill it, I guess. And so and so it turns out not a whole lot of people wanted to go anyway. But so eventually they had to start selecting people based on years in and qualifications and whatnot. And they came to me, and they came to my buddy Tom again, who at this point had he'd had a deployment under his belt now. And so they came to us both kind of, and they were like, we need X amount of people, and we have created a list of the people we think are the most qualified and that we really want to go. And, I don't know if they were just, filling me with fluff or whatever, but it worked. So, they kind of made me feel valuable to the team. So I of course, told them I'd be happy to go if they needed me. And so so there wasn't it wasn't like a twisting of the arm kind of thing. And it wasn't like I was being dragged out there. So that I got to give my squadron credit for that. They kind of selected some people and made them feel needed, and based on based on qualifications and stuff like that. So, so I went. So long story short, I went to Kuwait, Ali Al Salim, and that was the worst. I hated it. I never want to go back. And it was only because it wasn't because it was a bad experience. It was because it was just so boring, and I just hated it. And I'm because I'm used to the Balad Air Base deployments where at least it was hopping, and it was at least we had a little bit of at least a couple shells flying around here and there. And so in Ali Al Salim was nothing. It was just so boring. It was almost kind of being being stateside, but not being able to go home at the end of the day. So it kind of just sucked. But so that was that.
And was that another 6-month deployment in Kuwait?
That one was actually a little bit shorter. They didn't implement the mandatory 6 months until after I got back home from that deployment. Okay. So that deployment was actually between 4 and 5 months, I'd say. It was closer to 5 months, I think it was.
Okay. So, you come back from that deployment, probably so happy to be back in the States. And
Yeah, and actually a little bit wiser because I actually saved my money that I made. And I forgot to mention this. When I was, my first deployment, I was making bank. As you know, you get combat pay, it's tax-free, and you're getting, all this money. And I came back and I blew it all like an idiot.
of course,
So
yep.
actually, yeah. And then not so much in my second deployment. My second deployment, I didn't blow through it all, quote unquote, but I did use a lot of it. Like I had to buy a new car, and I had to, this, that, and the other thing. I was, at this point I had moved out, so I was paying rent and stuff like that. And so so I didn't have all the money that I earned, but at least from my Kuwait deployment, I didn't frivolously spend anything on anything I didn't need. So I came back at least happy that I had a good amount of change in the bank. So I was happy about that. I learned something there.
Okay, so you come back, and are you still at the prison at this point, working corrections?
Right. Yes, I still am. I started at the Department of Corrections as a corrections officer, like I said, after I returned from my first deployment. So I've been I've been hired there or employed there for a couple of years at this point. And one good thing about that, being deployed, working for the state, they actually pay you when you're away on military leave. So that was pretty cool. I know by law you're protected, where you can't get fired, you can't lose your job because of obligated military service. But working for the state, they go above and beyond that actually, and instead of holding your job, of course they have to hold your job, but instead of just holding it, they actually pay you like a military stipend while you're away. So that's pretty cool.
That's
So
great
when I
that they
got
take
back
care of you like that. Not a lot of
yeah,
employers go above and beyond like that.
right, and that's a state job, and at least in Pennsylvania. So I imagine any state job in Pennsylvania does that, and I don't know if that was like some bill that was passed or whatever. I know for Pennsylvania state employment that that is available. So that is really helpful. That is really cool. So yeah, I get back from Kuwait, and of course my job was still there waiting for me, and I go right back into doing correctional work as a CO, and yeah. So
So what's it like, working in a prison? What are you working? You're in a state prison. What's it
yeah.
like working in that kind of environment? I hear from a lot of people that being a corrections officer is probably like the worst job in the entire world. There doesn't seem to be a lot of people that really enjoy it. But it seems like you enjoyed
Oh,
it. You were there for 10 plus years. What's it like, man?
yeah. I'm laughing because it is absolutely terrible, and I'm laughing because what you said was like spot on. So like I said, remember when I first, took the test or whatever? My buddy was saying how great it was, and I think he meant it. I think he really did think that it was great, and I, when I first started, I thought it was great too. But I think our age had a lot to do with that, and like I said, I was young. And so it's considered law enforcement. I guess, the Department of Corrections is a branch of law enforcement. But, and like any law enforcement job, there's challenges, of course. There's great risk involved as well. But, working for the prison, or as a prison guard, we'll call it, everybody hates that term, prison guard, but like as a corrections officer, it's terrible. So when I first started, I really did enjoy it though. I was, the quote unquote go getter. I enjoyed, wearing my uniform, going to work, making a difference in the community, really, protecting the community from these criminals who are locked up, they're under my care. As in that, I have to, they're my responsibility. I'm protecting the community from these criminals. And so I looked at it that way. And because of that, I kind of enjoyed my job, in a way. But it really wasn't long before that wore off, and it's just, you're around, you hear that word or that phrase, negative energy.
Yeah.
And, I heard that phrase a few times in my life, and I kind of always just brushed it off as like, as kind of like an emotional thing. Like, it's negative energy. Like, what does that even mean? Like, until I worked at the prison, and then like it became a reality. Like, it is negative energy. It's just like, you walk into your shift, and we use the term eight in the gate. We have 8-hour shift, and you put your 8 hours in, and you go home, and that's like that's the goal. You just you survive 8 hours and you go home, and you don't bring your personal life into work, and you don't take work home with you. And that in itself is such a tough thing to do. It's such a challenge for anyone in law enforcement, which is why, again, the divorce rate is so high in law enforcement. It's just because it is difficult to do. Some guys can't turn it off.
Yeah.
And it's something you have to train to do. It's not something that, you can just do. I had an issue with that, of course. I think anyone will struggle with that. I struggled with it, particularly my first. So like I said, I was excited about work, and I was gung ho first couple of years, but year 3 to year 5 were really a struggle for me. I was bringing, it's not like I had a family, but I was definitely bringing work into my personal life, as far as my relationships. My girlfriend at the time, I was just really short. I had anger issues, and and it was just like that negative energy. It's a real thing, and it brings you down, and it changes people. Like, working in corrections, it just makes you miserable, and you really have to fight against it. I'm not saying that everyone is like that way, but I have seen, and I've experienced it myself. You just change. You can go from like being, having a great personality or whatever, to you just kind of like, being completely miserable.
Yeah, it weighs you down.
Life out of you. It does. It wears you down. It sucks the life out of you. And these are not terms that I'm just using lightly. It is like a reality. And anyone who's listening that has been in the corrections or is in corrections knows exactly what I mean. And it is just, it's difficult. And so anyway, when I hit that 3 to 5 year mark, I, like I said, I was making really good money, really good benefits, especially for the cost of living in the area that I lived. And so that made it really difficult to just up and leave. You don't just up and leave a job without having something else lined up, or at least a plan. And with the money or the benefits and the pay being so good, it just makes it that much harder to leave. And I think they do that. Corrections officers, we get paid fairly well. Benefits are fairly well. They're pretty good, actually. But there's a reason for that. The job that we do is not easy.
Yeah.
And there's guys I work with, and they were like, this is the easiest job I've had, and whatever. I mean, you can put on a front, you can be Billy Badass if you want, and you can try to put on this tough guy show or whatever. And some of the guys were, some of the guys were tough. I'm not saying that they weren't tough, but I know a lot of it was, a facade, and it's a charade, and I can't blame them for that either, because to a certain degree, you have to wear a facade. You have to put on a charade a little bit to a certain degree. Being a corrections officer, like if you're struggling with anything at all, like you cannot show it. Like you can't show it at all inside. Like the inmates will pick up on that. They can tell when you're scared. They can tell when you're weak. They can tell when you're not there mentally. If you got something on your mind, they'll know right away. You get to work with these guys, and they get to know you, and you get to know them. And these guys listen, so they know what they know what kind of car you drive. They know what vehicle you drive. They know what town you live in. Like, they know your cousin's middle name. Like if you talk about it at work, like they know. And so it's just really difficult. And so, yeah, so to a certain degree, you do have to kind of put on a show.
Yeah,
at least if you aren't. Yeah, you do. I mean, it does take a certain amount of strength to work there to begin with. Like, you can't be weak and work there. You have to have a certain amount of strength to actually perform your duties. But at the same time, if you're not up to par with as much strength as is needed, you're going to have to at least put on a front that you have that much. You know what I mean? So and everybody's different. There's some really tough COs there, and they do they're phenomenal officers because of that. And then there's some COs there that are, they're good dudes. They're good at what they do, but a lot of it is because they, for lack of better words, I guess they just kind of like they have to act the part. I know that they're not this person at home, but in uniform, performing your duties, you have to be this person, and that's one of the reasons too, which makes it kind of wearing down on you, because if you're not that person, and you have to pretend to be that person, that wears on you, Yeah. So there's a lot of different stressors and factors involved in what goes on inside.
So is it kind of after Kuwait and right around that year, kind of 4 or 5-ish, that you start thinking like, hey, maybe I need to come up with a different kind of plan, or?
Right. Yeah, right. So at least in the back of my mind, it may not have been, front and forth, or it may not have been like coming out in my words, like, oh, I got to get out of here. I got to find a new job. I wasn't saying that verbally, but at least in the back of my mind, I was thinking that, like, all right, I've been here 5 years, and I started when I was 23 years old. So I was 28 or no. Yeah. Yeah. So I was 28 years old. Wow. So like I was there 5 years. I started young. 23 is kind of young because the retirement age was 50. Now, I mean, you do the math, and I had to do like close to 30 years. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to do close to 30 years here. There's no way. It was 27 years I had to do before I can cut the retirement. And I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna be a CO for 27 years. I'm at year 5 and I want to like leave.
Yeah.
There's no way I could do another 22 years. And believe it or not, there's dudes there that have had 30 years in and they're still there.
Oh man.
And I'm like, how are these guys doing it? Now, don't get me wrong. These guys are like completely miserable and cut off from the world. They're like, God bless them, and I love them. Not saying anything against them at all, but like their personalities are gone. Like there's just like, what do you, like 30 years in corrections, like what have you become? Kind of like, it's just, but anyway, so I knew in the back of my mind that, I needed to kind of keep my eyes open, at least keep my ears open for other work potentially, or another, transition into something else, maybe another state job, I keep my seniority, so I didn't know exactly what direction I was going, but I knew that I kind of wanted to get out of corrections. And so for the next 5 years after that, which felt like a lifetime, that's kind of what I was just kind of like pushing towards. And then, which kind of just brings me to where I am now. So Lox Hair Wax Company didn't even start as, it wasn't even a mission of mine or a goal of mine to start a company. That wasn't my intention at all, to start a company that got me out of the prison. That was a byproduct of just something that just happened. And then that kind of just leads into how Lox Hair Wax Company started.
So walk us through that transition from corrections to starting this great company, doing probably like the last thing you would have ever thought you'd be doing, making hair care grooming products for men that are absolutely badass. How those are like two opposite ends of the spectrum there.
Yeah, I totally. And thank you for that. So and this is the story, and I tell the story like all the time. So if it sounds like I'm just reading from something, that that's just because this is just, it's not rehearsed. This is just my story, and I love telling it, and I tell it all the time. But so what started was, I just simply got tired of using water-based hair gel. Because, I mean, we have grooming standards in the military. We have grooming standards even in the prison. The grooming standards in the prison were actually really cool compared to the grooming standards of the military, because in the prison we were actually allowed to grow a beard as long as it didn't exceed 3 inches in bulk. I think it was 3 inches was the policy on that, the grooming standard. So, I mean, so there was kind of like, and there was no tattoo policy at all in the prison. So you had COs, full sleeves, neck tattoos, whatever, it didn't matter, hand tats. And so, and rightfully so, you don't want to look too clean cut. Not that being clean cut is bad, because you can still be a clean cut savage, I believe. And we have a lot of those guys in there still. And actually, I was pretty clean cut when I started. And I was still clean cut throughout my whole career. I just had a little bit more ink as I put some time in and started working on my sleeve. But anyway, what I'm getting at is that I used to fix my hair and whatever, because like I had thick curly hair and I needed product to control it and, wear it how I wanted to. And so I just got tired of using water-based hair gel. And I knew there was all natural alternatives out there. So I kind of just like looked to go buy one, and they were just super expensive. And I chuckle because this next step of the process is funny. I decided to just kind of make it myself. And so I ordered some ingredients: beeswax, shea butter, sweet almond oil. And I made, I did some research on different recipes and formulas and how to do this, that, and the other thing. And I made my first batch of hair pomade, all natural hair pomade. And when it got done cooling, it came out as hard as a brick. It was like extreme. I had to throw it away. Like, it was like rock solid hard. Like, I couldn't even use it. It was like a hockey puck. And I'm like, all right, well, that wasn't right, whatever I did. So, but I just, I had so much of these ingredients, because I bought a lot of it, and a little bit goes a long way. I had enough to make another batch, and I just tweaked the recipe a little bit, and until I came up with something. I just kept tweaking the recipe. It took me 3 or 4 different recipes until I finally came up with something that was, it worked. I was like, all right, this is, I'm happy with this outcome with this recipe. This works. And I tested it. I used it. And I had so much of it that I started bringing some in to my buddies, and I started giving it out to family members, and they were just super impressed with it. And they were like, dude, this stuff is awesome. You got to sell this stuff. Like, you should sell it. And I'm like, nah, I don't know. That wasn't my intention. I don't know. But I mean, a little bit of prodding, but they got my wheels turning, and the gears were grinding, and I'm like, all right, maybe I have something here. Maybe I can just kind of, little side hustle, people call it or whatever. So that's basically how Lox Hair Wax started. I founded a graphic designer, who's still my graphic designer to this day. He's phenomenal, Alan McKennelly. Great guy. So he helped me with a logo. He helped me with my first tin design, which was Battle Wax. And then I got a website up, and started a business page on Instagram and Facebook, and, started advertising and marketing and, whatever, started from the ground level. And
so what year was this in when you started, when you like designed the website and you really said like, okay, I'm just going to start selling this?
Yeah, this is 2016.
Oh man, 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Yeah. Yeah, and I don't advertise the year. I had a notion to put like established 2016 on my first label or logo or whatever. And the cool thing about my graphic designer is that he's just really business savvy too. And so he kind of like talked me out of it. And he's like, I would wait until you have like, several years in before you start advertising that, because people don't want to go buy products from a business that just started up. You need to have time to build rep, and you need to have time to have reviews and stuff like that. So whenever I do tell people like yourself that, and your listeners, that we started in 2016, I always get the same response, like, what? Like, that was only like 2 years ago. And I'm like, yeah, like this is just, it's just been like wildfire. It's been awesome. And so, but anyway, yeah, I mean, we could talk about growth in a minute, but 2016 was when I started, and that's when I launched a website. Of course, at this point, I had been making my own personal pomade for a few months. I actually tweaked that recipe that I really liked. I tweaked that a little bit more just to beef it up a little bit, because this just goes back to the mindset that, you know, I grew up with, that I wanted to make sure that if I was doing something, I wanted to make sure I was doing it right. And then if I was selling a product and putting my name behind it, like, it needed to be perfect. Like, it, you know, it needed to be top shelf. Like, I would not want to put out a mediocre product and you know, ask people to buy it. You know, I would, you know, so I tweaked the recipe that I had, which was already good, and I just made it that much better. And then in March of 2016, you know, we launched a website, and you know, the rest is kind of what they say is history, but just a lot of growth since then, and it's been awesome. So at the time, though, I was still a corrections officer. At the time, this was just my side hustle, though. It was not a means for me to get out of the prison yet, which was my end game, you know.
So at what point, you know, selling this stuff and developing the different lines and the different products, at what point did you say, hey, I've got something here. I can step away from corrections and do this full time? How long did it take?
Yeah. It didn't take long for me to get my hopes up. I'll say that.
Okay.
so I got my hopes up pretty quick. Like, you know, I started selling stuff. I remember, like, and I'm laughing at myself again because, like, I have no business major. I've got no marketing experience. It's just me, and God has blessed me with some friends that have wisdom and expertise in certain areas. And so, of course, I have quote unquote advisors, but nobody that I was paying to help me advise. So I would ask, like, so and so who I knew had a business, but, like, I may have known him for a while, my uncle or one of my dad's friends or whatever. Like, hey, like, what do you think about this? Or, and so, like, I have no experience in anything, but I remember just getting super excited when, like, I got an order. I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, I just, like, it's just entrepreneurship at its, like, most basic level. I was just, like, kind of like the kid at the lemonade stand who gets his first customer and that actually wants to buy a glass of lemonade. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Somebody actually wants to buy my product. Like, so I remember getting just super excited about every sale that I made. And it was never, and even now, and I love this too, even now, I'm still excited about every sale that I make. Like, as you know, you've ordered from me yourself. So, like, you get a handwritten note, a handwritten thank you at the least, with every order. And I have done that with every order that I've ever, filled.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that made me connect with the company when I placed my first order. I was like, okay, well, I'll just give it a shot. I like to support veteran-owned companies. And then I get, a couple stickers. I get a handwritten note from you with, like, a cool drawing. And it's like, oh, shoot, man, this is awesome.
Right, yeah. And so that's part of, like, I want the experience. The purchasing experience to me is always cool and fun. Like, I'm in the same boat as you. I up until, I still do this, but, like, I would always prefer to, support veteran-owned businesses and companies. And so, like, guys like Rogue American Apparel, like, Wes Whitlock, outstanding dude. But, like, I remember, like, making purchases from his website and then, like, getting my actual order delivered and, like, opening it up and finding, like, a cool little, like, whatever, like you just said, stickers. Like, even small stickers just go a long way. Like, who doesn't like stickers? Like, it's cool. And it's just like that whole purchasing experience. And so I wanted that to be incorporated in my business as well, because I wanted the purchasing experience to be a positive one, and, like, you used the word relate, and I wanted it to be relatable to my customers, and it just goes back to what I just said. Like, I still get excited for every sale, and it's just really cool. And so anyway, back in the beginning though, like it was, started off pretty slow. I remember like, going into work in the prison, and of course, no cell phones allowed in the prison, contraband purposes or whatever. So I would leave my cell phone in the vehicle, and then come back out after my 8-hour shift and just check my check my order statuses. And like, I remember like coming out and like, oh, I got an order today. Oh, sweet, or whatever. Like, I didn't get anything, or I'd wake up in the morning, check my website, and like, oh, I got an order or whatever. So like, I just that excitement never really got away. Now, it never went away rather. But now I don't wake up or check my orders like every like all the time now. I just when it's time to fill orders, that's when I go in, I log in and like, okay, I got, this many to do now, because I'm at the point where like, I stopped counting, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like when you're saving up for something special, when you're a kid and you want to buy something and you're like counting pennies, like, cause that's all you're making is like pennies, from your allowance. And then you go from that, like, to getting a job. And like, now it's like, kind of like, what you're going to get in your paycheck, and like that kind of like excitement goes away a little bit. But like, yeah, it's kind of relatable to that. So like I still get excited for every sale, but it's like at the quantity now where it's just really cool. Like, this is like a legit business now. Like, this is crazy. Wow, I'm actually doing this. And it took 2 years, and that in itself was kind of impressive. I was just really blown away by like, wow, 2 years. And like I read stuff and you hear stuff, and it's like, people are like, entrepreneurs, entrepreneurship 101. Like, if you're not turning a profit by year 5, like, pack it up. Like, and I'm like, man, 2 years in, and I'm like, this is awesome. Like, wow.
It's funny, man, because I connect with that so much. When I started the podcast, it was like every 20 minutes checking, like, oh, did anybody listen? Oh, no. Still
Yeah,
no
right.
downloads. Still no downloads. I'm literally just talking to
Yeah.
myself. But then those downloads start coming, and you're like, oh, man,
Yeah.
somebody in California just listened to my podcast. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
man. And then
Yeah.
it just starts rolling, and you're like, oh, my God, I can't even keep up with all the
Yeah.
the people listening or people placing orders. So, yeah, man, I connect with that, and it's cool to see it grow. You know, how did you feel when you finally made the decision? Okay, this is a full time thing. I don't need the prison anymore. I can disconnect myself from that. It's been great, but now it's time to move on. How did you feel when you finally made that decision?
Yeah. It felt like a weight was lifted. Like, the cloud, like this black, dark cloud kind of just moved away. Like, that's literally how it felt. And I know I used the term negative energy before, and it was just like, man, I was like, and I'm a spiritual person. So like, I was just praising the Lord that he allowed me to get to this point where I don't have to go back to the prison. Like, obviously I had to go back and I had to continue work up until, I turned in my, my resignation, 2 weeks and all this stuff. Of course I didn't just like, kind of like, hey, I'm not coming in anymore. See ya. So like, there was a process and transition still. But like, it just felt awesome. And I was for a few months before that, I made that decision. I was, obviously crunching numbers and making sure, double checking, like, okay, I need to make sure that I'm at where I need to be in order to make this next step. And so for those few months, it was kind of like up and down. It was like, oh, I'm at where I need to be. But then I would recalculate and I would be like, oh man, okay, so maybe I need to wait a little bit longer. And like, so that process went on for a little bit, and that was kind of like up and down, highs and lows. And that was a little stressful, but at the same time it was super exciting because I knew the day was coming soon, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah.
and then when it finally came, like, I triple checked the numbers. I'm like, is this it? Is this it? Is it time? And now I'm married. And so I'm like, talking to my wife and I'm like, I'm like, hey, honey, I think we're ready. Like, I think this is crazy. I can't believe we're here already. Like, that was the mindset, like I knew one day I wanted to be at that point and that was the goal. And the way it was and the rate which it was growing. I was pretty confident, rather. I didn't know. Of course, nobody knows the future, but like I was pretty confident that I would get to that point eventually. Just didn't know when. And then when it came, it was like, wow, I did not expect it to be now or at this time, this early. You know, like I expected it to be, you know, that 5-year mark or more, you know, where people actually say like, you know, it takes 5 years to, you know, start turning a profit. It takes 7 years to start like, you know, financing your budget. It takes 10 years to build an empire. Like, you know, like whatever, like, you know, there's all these like set quotas and motivational speakers and know-it-alls out there. And, you know, they have some valuable things. Of course, you always, you know, you don't want to ever be ignorant to someone who has experience. And I'm not that way. I do take, you know, I'm always open for advice, always open to learn things, but at the same time, I do consider the source, and I always, you know, take it as a grain of salt, of course. But so anyway, I only said that because here we are 2.5 years after the start of Lox Hair Wax Company, and we're at that point, and it was just amazing. Really, like I can't explain it other than that. It's just pretty awesome to be there.
You know, you started with just pomades that you were kind of making for yourself, and then you start selling them. But now you guys have kind of branched out. You've got beard oils, pomades, you've got
Right.
styling creams, you've even got like a salve for tattoos. What made you
Right.
decide to start branching out into all these other things? How'd you come up with that?
Yeah. So one of the reasons for branching out and expanding products, there's 2 reasons. One, obviously, because it's just marketable. It just makes sense. You know, you don't want to go to a men's grooming website and have only 2 options to choose from. You know, you want to go to a men's grooming site and you want it to be a one-stop shop. You know, you want to get your combs there, your pomades, your this, your that, and the other thing. And so that's one of the reasons why we are ever expanding. And I say ever expanding because we got lots more coming, and we're really excited to be working on some new things and coming out with new things soon. But yeah, so that from a business perspective was one of the reasons why, you know, we started with one pomade, but then, you know, grew into another pomade because, you know, we want people to have options, you know. Then it came into a tattoo salve. You know, we're just kind of thinking like, what else can we do? What else can we make? And at the same time, it still had to be handmade. It still had to be all natural because we wanted to be true to what we started with. And that was an all natural handmade alternative to the water-based, mass-produced, you know, quote-unquote garbage that is out there. And you know, I use the word garbage because, yeah, I'm a little biased, but, you know, I mean, the stuff works. I mean, nothing, you know, whatever. You know, the water-based hair gels, it still works, you know, most of them anyway. Some of them are true to the sense of the word garbage, like they don't work. But, I mean, you know, some of them work, but if you're talking about quality, you know, if you're talking about quality, then you're talking about apples and oranges because, you know, your handmade, your all-natural products are just top shelf. And so that's what we wanted Lox to be. So when we do research and develop new products, you know, has to be in that, you know, has to fill that standard, which is, you know, handmade, all natural. And so, which is why we won't, you know, I don't ever foresee us making, for example, like an aerosol shaving cream or something, you know. So like, you know, not to say that we'll never do it, but, you know, it's just not the direction I want to go right now. Or at all.
Yeah.
So the tattoo salve was just another, it fit the category of handmade and all natural. So I just did a lot of research on what to do, how to do it. The development stage was, of course, personal use. You know, kind of like going to my buddies, like, hey, you want to try this product out? And let me know what you think. And the fun thing is that, you know, I always have positive responses to that. You know, like, hey, I actually had a friend come up to me and say, hey, you gave a sample out to so and so, and like, you know, hey, I got a beard, I want a sample too. Like, you know, like kind of like not that they were mad that I didn't include them, but they were just kind of eager to be part of the
absolutely.
part of the process, which was kind of cool. So I was like, hey, yeah, man, of course, you know, yeah, I'll here, try this out, let me know what you think, you know, this, that, and everything. So yeah, so from a business perspective, we want options. So that's one of the reasons why we're expanding. But another reason is, this is where the fun, I think, comes in for me at least. It's just because every new product we come out with, as has its own theme or artwork. And that's loads of fun for me. You get your typical men's grooming companies out there, and it's pretty much the same. They may have like 4 or 5 products, but they all look the same. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's all about what kind of branding you want. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't knock that. But to me, that's kind of like boring. And so what you find is you find other grooming products, and it goes for anything really, any kind of brand. And what you have is you've got like 5 different products, but they all look the same. So it's like the company's logo is in the middle of the label, and some words on it and whatever. And it may look clean, it may look nice, it may look cool or whatever, but to have all 5 products that look like that, it's kind of like, to me, don't you want to kind of spice it up a little? So, I mean, at least color change it,
And
so,
it's one thing I love about your guys' products, man, is the designs are so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I was getting at. Every time we come out with a new product, we kind of roll out, okay, what do we want to do with this? What can we do with this? And a lot of the times it's relatable to the product. For example, the body moisturizer tattoo salve, Black Diamond salve. And so that was kind of we themed that around the American coal miner. And a guy who was in underground, working with his hands all day. And so it kind of just makes sense that this guy is going to go home, clean up, and then want to, protect his skin, or, treat his skin to some all natural salve. And so kind of that's relatable to the actual product, which was cool. And then like you just said, every product we come out with has its own theme. And so it's kind of funny because I'll be thinking of a theme before I actually think of a product. And I'll be like, oh, I got a great idea for a label. I just need to find a product to put it on, and so, yeah, so it's pretty fun. It's really fun actually. And so, yeah.
And the really impressive thing is you've done all this while you're still serving in the Air Force Reserves. And
right.
There's got to be some challenges that come with that. I know we talked a little bit offline before the podcast about, making sure that you can continue to do your job in the Air Force and continue to, run your company. What are the challenges that come along with that, man? Especially as the Lox continues to grow and get bigger and bigger.
Right. Yeah. So as we did just have a phone call before, I did talk to you briefly before this podcast. Yeah, I did mention to you that I made a decision to stick it out in the Air Force Reserve, which of course is not the case of the decision I made to leave the Department of Corrections. That was an easy decision. But the decision to whether or not to stay or get out of the Air Force Reserve, that one took a little bit more thought, and I guess it was it wasn't extremely difficult, but it wasn't really easy either. As be it military life, just like anything else, it wears on you, whatever. And I've been in the military 12 years now. And so drill weekends just getting old. I live 3 hours one way from McGuire Air Force Base. So every, once a month, it's I got to drive 3 hours one way, and then Sunday night I got to drive 3 hours back home. And so that's just kind of it gets old, as they say, And so, but I just, the Air Force has given me, the military has given me so much. It may sound cliche or whatever, but it really has. And so I don't take it for granted, even though there are times where I'm like, man, I don't want to be here right now, or whatever. Or I don't want to deal with this drama, or all the nonsense that goes along with, military life. But at the same time, I got 12 years in, first of all, why not at least, finish it up, wrap it up with a good 20-year career. And so part of the reason, though, that made that a little bit easier is because I have a solid team that is able to help me, if I were to, let's say, deploy and I'd be gone for 6 months, like who's going to run the show? So like I have confidence in my team, no matter how, it's just a small team, but still they're good at what they do. They're a huge help to me. And, so I'm at the point where like, I'm pretty confident with my decision to just kind of stick it out, the Air Force Reserve, if deployment comes and I have to go, then fine, so be it. I'm in good hands and the company's in good hands. And so, so to answer your question, I'm going to stick it out with the Air Force Reserve and juggle Lox Hair Wax Company as the CEO. And it's not a burden. It's fun. I'm loving what I'm doing. And, I'm passionate about this. And so it kind of makes it a little bit easier, definitely.
Yeah, and like you said, it helps when you've got that team around you, and you're able to say, hey, I can step away for a weekend and do this, and have faith that you guys you're not gonna come back to like a burned down factory and like your guys going, oh man, I don't know what happened, boss. It's weird.
Yeah, right. No, and even like my family, like, so my team pretty much, it goes a little bit deeper than this, but on the surface anyway, it's myself, my wife, and then the Iron Tommy. But I do have a lot of more, support, and some more, less detailed, I guess, team. Team Lox is just, there's two parts of Team Lox. Team Lox is, the actual team. And then Team Lox is also just kind of like, it's more of an idea. So like Team Lox can really just be like, anybody who just, we're patriots. So, if you're a patriot, hey, and you like Lox Hair Wax Company, like you use our products and you dig our products, then, we consider that, as part of Team Lox. So Team Lox is kind of like a dual meaning to it. But at the same time, I only use that as an example because, I've had some real conversations with my family, like, hey, look, going back a few months ago when the whole North Korean thing was unstable. And so like, we could be going to, we could be getting deployed here. I could be up and leave and like, I could be gone in a week, so I kind of needed to set things in place. And so I have really good family too, that they don't help me on the day-to-day operations of Lox Hair Wax Company, but if needed, they would step up to that point. So I have that as well.
Yeah.
So definitely blessed with that. So
you had made a comment about the Air Force giving you so much and you want to stick it out. That's one thing I love about kind of the military community and the veteran community. And you've started to team up with other, veteran-owned companies. You guys did a line with Valhalla where you've done a couple other custom lines. How's it to work with these other veteran companies and be able to come together and be like, hey man, no competition. We're just going to come together, make a cool product, and put it out for people to enjoy.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. That is, our custom line is one of our favorite things here at Lox. That is just really cool. We love, as you know, the whole graphic design artwork that goes into our products. We love being able to get with other veteran-owned companies. And they don't have to be veteran-owned. It just happens to be that most of our custom line is veteran-owned. But, it's cool to get with another company that has their own marketing angle and their own uniqueness. And we kind of collaborate with the artwork or a product, and we kind of create this unique custom product. And that is just really exciting. Like you just said, we're not competing, definitely not competing because, if one of my custom line clients sells their pomade at an extremely high rate, that's awesome because that just means more business for Lox because we're in this together. So, we offer all of our custom line clients, free marketing and advertising because it just makes sense, So with all of our custom line clients, we of course promote their product, and there is I don't want to use the word delicacy. It's not delicate. It's just a certain way of doing a uniqueness, I guess, because of course there needs to be some exclusivity with our custom line. If I sold battle wax to like Valhalla Wear used as an example, if I just pretty much put Valhalla Wear sticker on a tin of battle wax, they're pretty much selling the same product,
Yeah.
And so of course we want to avoid that. So when we come up with this unique custom line, Valhalla Wear has a pomade that is unique to them, and you can only get it from them. And so that's what's really cool. And the same thing goes for all of our custom line clients. We have Bunker 27. We've got American Operator Apparel, Slate Operations. Valhalla Wear was mentioned. There's actually a veteran-owned barbershop, the Chop Shop. That's pretty cool. And we're working on a couple more behind the scenes that I can't, I don't want to mention yet because they're not fully functional yet, and it's not, the products are still underway. But what I was saying is each one of them, has their own custom pomade or product. And so it's not like you go get Valhalla Wear's, Odin's Wrath pomade, and then, it's the same thing as getting Bunker 27's pomade, because it's not. Because the smell is completely different, and each smell is awesome. That's one of the things we pride ourselves in. I actually got to talk to you about this before we started recording or whatever, but the amount of detail and work that goes into a custom line product, getting that smell, or we call them flavors, but getting that flavor just right, just right. And so that's a fun process. And then Valhalla Wear, since we're using them as an example, Odin's Wrath smells of cedar wood and black pepper. And I explained the process of how we got that. And that's just part of the process. It's fun, it's exciting, and it's exclusive. So if you want cedar wood and black pepper pomade, you can't get it from our original line, and you can't get it from any other custom line. You have to get that from Valhalla Wear. And so the same thing goes with the other companies I mentioned as well. They each have their own unique flavor and product, and it's really cool.
Yeah, man, I love it. We're gonna start winding down here a little bit, but in the thought vein of talking about the military, what kind of advice would you give to guys out there that are in the military and they're thinking that, it's time for them to start transitioning out of the military? What kind of advice would you give to those people that think, hey, I want to get out. Maybe I want to open my own business. Maybe I want to do something like what you've done. What would you tell people, man?
Yeah. Yeah, man. Wow. There's so much advice that's out there. And so first and foremost, I would just say, listen to what's out there, because there's a lot of tools out there and there's a lot of information out there. And I would just say, be prepared mentally first, and have a head knowledge of what you're doing and getting into before you just take that leap of faith. There's a lot of people out there that just say, put everything you got into it and don't look back and just jump off the deep end. But, there is, to a certain extent, a point in which you do have to make that decision. But up until you leading up to that point is really where, that the work on your end comes in. And that's research, that's information, and that's, all of that stuff. So.
Yeah, that's funny that you said that, because I was talking about that last night with another friend of mine. And you can't just dive into something. People say
Right.
oh, well, if you don't like your job, just quit. Like like
Right.
you talked about with corrections, you couldn't just quit, man. Like, you got a family
Right.
to support. So it is really important to take the time, think about what you want to do, make the considerations. But then once you do make that decision, chips in, man. You gotta
Yep.
commit to it.
Yes. I agree with you 100%. Mentally speaking, even psychologically, I use the word mentally, and sometimes I interchange it with the word psychologically. So if you jump into something or you start something, you can't have the mindset that if this doesn't work, I can do this. Once you start thinking that way, you will just, psychology.
Yeah, you're never committing
You just like
100% if you're
right,
like that.
exactly. So like you just said, you have to be committed. So you have to just commit to it 100%, and and then if it doesn't work, then you can start thinking about what your backup options are. But don't go into a profession or your passion with a backup plan, because that will, I think, sidetrack you. And that, again, that's just my advice. Like I told everyone before, take advice with a grain of salt, and so do the same thing with my advice too. So
Yeah.
don't just yeah. So anyway, but yeah, totally. There is a point in which you need to be prepared and get that information, because that's why it's so important. Because if you aren't prepared, and then you make that decision to go all in, all chips in, you really need to make sure that you're right before you make that decision, and then that's it, and then be committed.
Yep, I absolutely
on
agree.
on that note, I was just going to say, my one friend Ian Strimbeck from Rune Nation, he's a smart dude. He just recently took the commitment to go full time into he does live fire courses training, and he's phenomenal. He's a retired Marine, so he has the experience in the military background. And there's lots of training available, and the more I am on social media, the more I see it like pop up everywhere. Like take our courses, take these courses, take these courses. But Rune Nation, Ian Strimbeck, he's just phenomenal what he does, and but the reason why I thought of him was because of that. He went all in, and this is what he does. He loves it. It's his passion, and he's doing it really well. And he's like super easy to talk to. That's what's great about him. Like, he will give his experiences and his advice, with very easily. You ask him, and he will be more than happy to help you with whatever, because he's going through it or has gone through it, and he's happy to share his experience. And that's not everyone's like that. He's like that, and I try to be like that, and there are a lot of people like that, but not everyone's like that. And so that's, I think, if you have that, then you have something that's good.
And that's an important thing, and that's why I like to do this podcast, because I can get guys like you on here who can share your experiences and say, hey, these are the things that I did, these are the mistakes that I made, these are the right choices I made. Here it is, take it or leave it. And it's helpful to other veterans that are in the same shoes, or other people. There's veterans and non-veterans alike
Yeah.
that listen to this. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's important to have
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the military prepares us for a lot of things, and entrepreneurship can or can't be one of them. Like, it just depends. It's not easy. People think like, man, I'm just going to start my own business, and it's really tough. But don't just stick with it. This is the American dream. We live in America where we're able to do this. That is awesome. Wow, I was actually able to start Lox Hair Wax Company 2 years ago, and now it's my thing. Like, this is like, wow. It only, you can do that in other countries, I guess not many, but like, honestly, this country is awesome. It's amazing. And it's just really cool to know that the American dream can still be grasped. And it's not just a theory. It's actually, it could be a reality.
It's
so
not just
really
a talking
cool.
point that politicians can talk about. It's a real thing that you can get out, and if you put the work into it and you think your way through, you can live the American dream. And you're living proof of that right there.
Yeah.
Starting this company that you found you had an idea, and you said, okay, well, is there anything out there? Okay, not really. Well, why don't I make it? It's great.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And then entering men's grooming world is just like, it was, it's a tough market. It's definitely a tough market. But you want competition. Without, a market without competition is really no market. So, I mean, so the competition is good, it's healthy, and that's, of course, what helps growth in a business. But at the same time, entering into a saturated market is really challenging because it's saturated and it's just really challenging. So if you do, just another pointer or whatever to your listeners who may be entrepreneurs or potential entrepreneurs, if you do enter a market that is, quote unquote saturated or whatever, one, it's not hopeless. Okay. And two, you just have to be that much more creative, stick with it. Find out what everyone else is doing and isn't doing, and find out why. Are they not doing it because it's a bad idea, or are they not doing it because no one's pioneered it yet? And the Iron Tommy has kind of coined that phrase "pioneer" for me anyway, because that's what we are, and that's what you need to be in a market that's semi-saturated or saturated. You need to be a pioneer, and that just means doing something that no one else is doing, or doing it better. And just as an example for Lox Hair Wax Company, men's grooming, okay, pomades. There's thousands of pomades out there, okay, but we needed to be set apart. We needed to pioneer that market. And I think we're doing a good job at that, with the Viking theme of our pomades, with the coal miner, with a skull coal miner from the 1920s. He's not even wearing a helmet and a headlamp. He's wearing a cloth cap with one of those like oil burner things, and so we kind of keep it vintage. We keep it old school. Our styling creams have the World War II theme, designated for every branch, which is super cool. I mean, I may be biased, but I'm just, this is super cool. Our aftershave balm is the World War I American Doughboy. We call it bayonet butter.
Yeah, there's nothing else out there like it, man. It's great.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's hundreds of aftershave balms out there, but there's only one bayonet butter out there, so there's only, so it's cool. It's definitely cool. We love what we're doing. We love that. Yep.
So any closing advice or words that you want to give to the listeners, about your life, about entrepreneurship, about the military, anything else you want to touch on?
Yeah, definitely. Just a couple things. Man, I struggle with this one, but be humble, stay humble. You never get too proud. Never get proud, I should say, because being proud is too proud already. So just stay humble. Be a people person, and that just means everyone's got their own personality, but that just means be humble. That's, honestly, if you're humble, you'll be a people person because you'll be easy to talk to. You can relate to people, and so that's one of my big things, and I struggle with that too. So I mean, hey, we're human. So be humble, stay humble, and then give back. And I think humility has to do with makes giving back a little bit easier, of course, too. So being humble again is just key, but giving back. I mentioned earlier how grateful I was for the military and what it's given me, with the experiences, with the friendships, the bonds, all of that. And so, call this a plug if you want, but we give back. I make it a point for Lox Hair Wax Company to give back. So we have donated to multiple foundations, organizations, nonprofits, families of a murdered correctional officer. So we give back, not because it feels good, but a byproduct is it does feel good to give back, but because there's value in that. There's value in giving back, and so anyway, yeah, those are my closing remarks.
Yeah, I love that because that's what's so great about the veteran community is you can give back, and kind of that's my niche is the veteran community. So my way of giving back is supporting other veteran-owned companies and helping guys out and doing that.
Yeah.
So it's great to see a company like Lox giving back to their local community, to these nonprofits, to families, whatever it is. That's great, and that's what this is all about. At the end of the night,
you
can go home
definitely.
and make a bunch of money and have a great paycheck, but what are you doing with that? How are you giving back?
Right. Yeah. How do you impact other people? And essentially that's what it's all about is people. You have to love people, and that's what has to motivate you. And And yeah, and you as an example, I mean, you're giving back right now by just allowing me to be on your awesome podcast, and like that to me, that's so cool. I'm like so honored to be here and sit with you and talk with you, and it's, yeah. So I mean, it's great, great.
I'm honored to have you because this is my way of giving back and my kind of my little 2 cents that I can give back to the veteran community. So it's great to have somebody like you on the show and be able to take that knowledge that you've gathered over a lifetime of military service and creating this successful company and give it out to other people. It's great, man. I couldn't ask for any better way to spend my time than doing this. So
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
I'm honored
Much.
to have
Thank
you
you.
on the show, man. Um, why don't you go ahead and plug out your guys' social media websites, anything else you want to throw out there so that people can find you guys online and find the things that you guys are doing and get out there and help support Lox Hair Wax Company.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to do that. So, of course, our website is www.loxpomade.com, and Lox is spelled Lox. Just real quick, Lox was named after for two reasons. One, it just makes sense because locks of hair, but we just spell it different. And then Lox, when I was dating my wife at the time, she had long, super long blonde hair, and I used to nickname her Goldilocks, and I still nickname her Goldilocks. But so anyway, the name Lox kind of was derived from that, so that was kind of, she likes that. But anyway, yeah. So there's our website. Our Instagram is Lox Hair Wax Company. Our Facebook page is Lox Hair Wax Co. LLC. Let's see, some affiliates. I mentioned Ian Strimbeck from Rude Nation. Good dude, great knowledgeable gun courses if you want to check him out. Also, if you check our website out, we have a list of Lox dealers. So barber shops, gun shops, and a tattoo parlor that carries our stuff. Go support them if they live close to you, or if you live close to them. Skill Set magazine, really cool magazine, really cool magazine actually. Check them out, Skill Set.
They've got a great podcast too.
And
I don't know if you've ever listened to their podcast. Theirs
I
is
yes,
really good.
yes, they do. Yes, yeah. I have several subscriptions to multiple podcasts. They're one of them. You're one of them. And yeah, there's a couple other goings out there. But yeah, they do. They have me cracking up on their show. But yeah, so that's it. I appreciate anyone and everyone who checks us out, whether or not you sign up for a newsletter, whether or not you even buy something. It doesn't matter. We're just thankful that you know who we are. So that in itself is cool.
Yeah, and guys, I'll put the links to all of the social media, the website, and everything. I'll put them in the show notes so you guys can find them. But they're a great company. I absolutely love every single thing that I've bought from them. They're great people, giving back to the veteran community, which really is what it's all about. And their pomades are great. I use it every single day. Their beard oils, they've got awesome lines of stuff up on there, and you can get stuff. They've got their custom line, which, like we talked about, a lot of that is other veteran companies, so you can support two with one stone, and it's
There you
all
go.
quality stuff, man. Brother, I appreciate you coming on the show so much, dude. This has been amazing. It doesn't feel like it's been 2.5 hours, but it has.
Oh wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
right on.
Any last words you want to say before we cut the listeners loose and get out of here?
No, that's it, man. That's it. Just thank you. Yep. I said
Awesome,
everything I
man.
needed to and wanted to. So yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you for coming on the show. And guys, make sure you check out Lox Hair Wax Co., loxpomade.com. Like I said, all the links will be in the show notes. David, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I appreciate it more than I could ever describe to you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, guys, stay tuned. We're going to move into the Badass American Hero of the Week right after this. All right. That is the end of our discussion, our conversation with David Misiura, Air Force Reservist, three deployments to the Middle East, like he talked about, and the founder and CEO of Lox Hair Wax Company, a top of the line grooming products for men company, veteran owned, veteran operated, and I was very, very excited to have him on the podcast tonight. I'm a huge fan of what they do. I'm a huge fan of their products, and that's really how David and I got in touch. Was actually through me ordering stuff through their website, and he reached out and said, hey, I'd love to come on the podcast. Would you have me? And I said, yeah, absolutely, man. So I'm a fan of what they're doing over there. Their products are top shelf. It's all really, really good stuff, top of the line. It's all natural, made in America, and you're supporting veterans, which is what I'm all about. So great stuff, great company, and just a huge thank you to David for taking the time out to come on the podcast and talk to you guys and talk to me and share his story with us. Fantastic and fascinating to get to listen to, and funny how small the military is that him and I were, in the same place in Iraq at the same time. Didn't know it, didn't know each other. He was probably dealing with the aircraft that flew me into the country in 2009. So it's a small world, man. But yeah, that's his story. So make sure you guys go check them out on all the social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook. Check out their website, loxpomade.com, and go out there and support them. Great company. Hopefully get to do a lot more work with them in the future. And so go do that. Now we're going to move into my favorite part of the show, the Badass American Hero of the Week, the namesake of this podcast, the Badass American Hero of the Week. Every week we dive into a Congressional Medal of Honor recipient. And for those people that don't know, let's do a little bit of background real quick on the Medal of Honor. It's the highest award that can be awarded in the United States military for valor. There's only a small number of service members that have ever been awarded this award, and every week we go through and we highlight one of the recipients. So that's what we're doing right now. We're going to get ready to go into it here, and all this information comes from the Congressional Medal of Honor Society's website. It is the official website for anything and everything Congressional Medal of Honor related. All right, let's get into this tonight. We have our Badass American Hero of the Week is William, I'm going to mess this last name up and I'm sorry, Alchese. William Alchese, Sergeant in the United States Army Indian Scouts, born in 1853 in the Arizona Territory, entered service in Camp Verde, Arizona, and this citation takes place over the winter of 1872 to 1873. The citation, again, kind of a short one. It reads, the Congressional Medal of Honor is awarded to Sergeant William Ashe for gallant conduct during campaigns and engagements with Apache Indians over the winter of 1872 to 1873. So there we go. Sergeant William Ashe, thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice. Guys, I say this every week and I mean it every single time I say it. If you're a veteran out there and you're having a tough time, reach out. Reach out for help. Talk to a battle buddy. If you have no one you can talk to, if you're getting voicemails at every single turn, reach out to us here at the podcast. Our social medias, our email, there's ways to get a hold of us, and I'm here to help you guys out. I will get you plugged in with whatever help you need. But please, please, please reach out. And to all the vets out there, there's nobody that's going to take care of us like we will take care of each other. That's just the cold, hard truth of the world that we live in. Nobody cares about anybody but themselves and their circle. And our circle as veterans is other veterans. So we have to take care of each other, pick each other up, watch out for each other, and square each other away. And it might not be what some of you guys out there want to hear, but it's the truth. If we don't take care of our own, nobody else is going to. We have to lead this battle against PTSD and depression and anxiety and on all this crap, this 22 suicides a day. We have to take the charge on this and lead from the front and fight this thing, or else we are going to continue to lose our brothers and sisters after they've returned home from combat, and that is unacceptable to me, and I know it's unacceptable to a lot of you guys out there. So let's continue to work together. Kick that number from 22 to fucking 0. We can do it if we work together and we put our full effort into taking care of ourselves and each other. Self-help, guys, is super important. Take the time that you need to take care of yourself, because you can't take care of other people if you're all jacked up. So do those things. Let's take care of each other. And one way that we can do that is by continuing to get people on the show to share their stories. So, guys, if you're interested in coming on the show, or you have a family member that's a veteran that you know would love to share their story, please get in contact with me. You can send me a DM on Instagram or Facebook. You can drop me an email. On Instagram, you can find us at Badass American Heroes. Facebook, the fan page pops up if you just search Badass American Heroes Podcast. Drop me an email, badassamericanheroes@yahoo.com. Those are the places you can get a hold of me. And those are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, reach out if you would like to be on the show, or if you've got a family member or a friend that would like to come on the show. Let's get them on, and let's get on it. Also, guys, you guys are listening to this, so you know where to find the podcast. But tell your friends and tell your buddies about the podcast so that they can listen and check it out. They can find it, all over the internet, all over the webs. You can find it on podbean.com, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn. It's on YouTube now, guys. So you can even, if you're at work and you work in front of a computer, you can pull it up on YouTube, play it in the background, and boom, you're good to go. So it's there. Those are the places you can find it. If you guys like the podcast, man, drop a review, please. For the love of God, drop a review and let me know what you think about the show. iTunes is the best place to do that. Those reviews help me out. They help me, some constructive criticism, figure out how to make it better, figure out what you guys like, and they help boost us up the charts so that more people can hear this and we can get more people on the show. So do that for me, please. I appreciate it. Keep your ears and eyes open for more giveaways, more awesome stuff that's going to be coming out very, very soon. And that's going to do it for me. You guys don't have to listen to me talk anymore. There we go. All right, guys. Until next time, this is the Badass American Heroes. I am Brandon. Fuck ISIS, and keep on keeping on, guys.